What's going on, Sheepdog? Suresh here, 221B Tactical. Today we are going over one of the most fundamental principles when it comes to firearms, and that is, what do you do when you have a jam or a misfire? So recently there was a video of a female police officer who got into an officer-involved shooting with a male suspect who was coming after her with a screwdriver in one hand and two knives in the other hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that video, and then we're going to come back and break it down. So go ahead and check it out now.
Drop the weapon! Drop the weapon!
Okay, so kind of a crazy situation, but something that a police officer or even a civilian can encounter any given day, any given moment. So let's break it down. What you see in the video is the female officer draw her weapon. So before we go into anything right now, of course, safety first. So I'm going to show you my weapon, show you that the weapon is clear and safe, and I'm going to actually show you that no ammunition. Okay, so what I'm going to do is load the magazine into this weapon, and so we know the weapon is clear and safe. So you see in the video that as the suspect is approaching the officer, she draws her weapon, and as he is closing the distance, now she is doing something that I've trained and I tell people, especially young officers, never do, which is back up. You see in the video, she's backing up, backing up, backing up. And we're going to get into that in the later part of the training on the Sheepdog Nexus, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But what we're going to talk about today is how she managed the misfire and why that misfire happened. So you see her putting rounds on the suspect, and he's drawing and closing in. And now, one of the questions people have is, how did he keep coming at her while he was being shot? Was she missing? Was she not hitting him? And the reality is, he probably had some adrenaline going, and he probably had been hit a couple of times. I'm not sure of the shot count that struck him, but he was probably hit a couple times, but that adrenaline was going, so it looks like he was dead set on harming or even killing this officer, okay? And the background on this story is he had gotten into a dispute with someone at a store over wearing a mask over their face, and she was able to locate this subject in a neighborhood. She was able to locate his car, and she pulled him over in a residential neighborhood to speak to him about that incident in where he apparently threatened a man or had a confrontation with a man about not wearing a mask in a store. He exits the vehicle and immediately comes after her, once again armed with the screwdriver and not one but two blades in the other hand. So she orders him to drop the weapons, drop the knives, and of course he keeps approaching. So she's putting rounds on, and then at one point when he comes after her with that hand that had the two knives in it, she takes one hand off the weapon and tries to swipe it away. Now, I always wore gloves on patrol. I just didn't like germs. I didn't like touching people, even if I was just touching their driver's license or anything like that. I just always wore gloves. I didn't care what season it was. I always had gloves on. And one of the things that I didn't like about always having gloves on is sometimes you lost some dexterity, and that's why I actually developed gloves for patrol that offer full dexterity, have touchscreen. You could get your finger in the trigger guard and do everything almost as if you don't have gloves on. And of course, I have my level 5 cut resistant gloves on that help protect against slashes and cuts and abrasions. So in this video, this female officer was not wearing gloves. So what I feel, she did an excellent job. Let me just start by saying she did a fantastic job handling this situation. However, the one thing that I would, if I could speak to her, I would caution her about, and I'm sure she too probably in hindsight is looking back and saying, I shouldn't have done that, is she takes one hand off her weapon, she takes her off hand, her support hand, and tries to push the hand that he had the two knives in away. And when she does that, his other hand that looks like has the screwdriver in it, I believe, comes over the gun and hits the gun. And you could see that he hits the top of the gun as the gun is cycling. Now, so you can see in the video that the gun is actually cycling and he hits it. And that is what causes the misfire. So what happens is she goes to swipe it away. Once again, I would have loved to see her have some cut-resistant gloves on in trying to do that, because with gloves like this, you could actually even grab that blade if possible and get that threat away, but she didn't. So she could have suffered a significant, serious hand injury in that moment. So thankfully she didn't. So she takes a swipe away instinctively, because he was coming with the knife. So she instinctively took that, and then she comes back on. But at this point, the weapon failed to cycle because he hit it. So now she has the misfire, okay? So we're gonna just send this home. Now she goes to fire again, and it doesn't fire. So immediately she does what's commonly taught as tap, rack, and go, tap, rack, and reassess. Everyone has a different name for it. Tap, rack, ready. I always like tap, rack, reassess. I don't like some people say tap, rack, bang, or tap, rack, shoot. I'm not a fan of that, only because after you tap and you rack, you don't automatically want to send a round. You want to reassess. So I like tap, rack, reassess. And you see her, she swipes, the weapon was hit, she comes back, it doesn't fire. So she immediately, and it was beautifully done, hits the bottom of that, and the purpose of that is to seat the magazine, okay? You want to seat that magazine because there's a series of things that could have happened that caused this situation. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, you're hitting that mag release, and sometimes that mag is out. So that's failing to feed the next round, okay? So the first thing you want to do is tap of the tap, rack, reassess. So you tap, and just if that is out, you're going to tap, and you're going to send that magazine home, okay? Rack, then you want to grab the slide, whether you want to grab it in the front, grab it in the back. However, we're not going to get into that and the reasons for that. But you want to now rack the weapon. Now, of course, if there's a round in there, it's not going to lock back. It's going to lock back here because there's no round in the chamber, or in the magazine to chamber. So, but if you have rounds in that magazine, when you rack, it's going to now reset if there is a stovepipe, which means the casing of the previous round that failed to eject, or there's a misfeed. You're going to eject a round, and now you have a fresh round in there, and then you get back into the fight. Now you reassess, right? Do you need to keep shooting? Do you need to send another round at this threat? Is the threat still a threat, or is it neutralized? You have to now, you have a split second, something most people don't know about police officers. Are making split-second decisions every day. So you tap, you rack, and now you reassess and get back on that threat. And she saw that he was bending over and trying to pick up his weapon that he had just dropped to obviously come back at him. You're not going to pick up your weapon again just to polish it, right? He's coming back he's looking to get those weapons back in his hand so he can continue that attack. So you see in the video, tap, rack, and then she goes ahead, that cleared the weapon, and she puts more rounds on the subject and neutralizes that subject. So beautifully done. So the two things, and we talk about this a little bit more in depth in the Nexus, is the two things is swiping away when you don't have gloves on and you don't have cut resistant. These are level 5 cut resistant gloves. So you don't even want to attempt to stop a blade threat even with regular gloves, leather gloves, regular patrol gloves. Those blades are going to slice right through, and you can get a severe muscle tendon injury that could be devastating. It could be career ending. So you definitely don't want to try that if you don't have protective armor like gloves on your hands. But the other thing is you don't want to backpedal. And we get into that in the training Nexus, because in the backpedaling, if she were to trip, maybe she stepped in a pothole, if she's tripped, a multitude of things could happen. She could fall back, hit her head, and knock herself out. She could fall back and in trying to brace herself, lose her weapon. There's a multitude of things that can happen, but we don't want that to happen at all. So what you want to do is what they call, and we're going to go over this in the Nexus, which is get off the X, meaning step aside and get off the X and get out of his path of attack, rather than backpedal, which can get you into serious trouble. So we'll go into that further, but that is the premise of what we want to talk about today, which is the tap, rack, and reassess, and why it's so important. So even if you're a civilian, this is important for you to know. It is something that it can happen to anyone at any time, even if he didn't hit that weapon. It's something that can happen. It happens. It could be faulty ammunition, faulty magazine, misfeeding. You don't know, so you always want to be prepared for it, and you want to go through that same progression every time. You could see in the video, it takes her just a second to do that and get back in the fight. And now some people say, you don't always, sometimes you want to make sure you go, if you know that the magazine was seated, you just want to now, look over the top of the gun, see if there's a misfire. The reality is you can do all that, and people who preach that, they're not wrong. However, most of the time, I want to say maybe 90+%, maybe even 95% of the time, the tap, rack, and reassess is going to take care of whatever is going on. Now, people say, well, what happens if you do the tap, you do the rack, and it still doesn't fire? Well, in some situations, that's the point where you would say you want to go to your secondary weapon. But for police officers, most of the time, that's their only weapon. So if you're on a long gun, it's a different story. If you're on your pistol as a police officer, that's all you have. So you want to be cognizant of that. Now, some people say, well, do you do it again? Some are advocates of doing it again. However, people say that's the definition of insanity, doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. So you can potentially do that again and still not have a functioning weapon. So I caution people on that. You do that, it doesn't work. You do that tap, rack, reassess, and you try to pull that round. Again, it doesn't work. Some people will say, holster the weapon and go to another weapon. You have a taser, you have a blade on you, whatever. Other people will say, do it again. I say follow your training guidelines. However you feel comfortable, whoever you train with, follow those training guidelines. I'm not going to say one thing's right or one thing's wrong. That is up to you, and it also is based on the situation that you're in. So we're going to go into this a little bit further and break this down and deconstruct it even more in the Sheepdog Nexus. And for those of you who don't know, the Sheepdog Nexus is, we have a private training group on Facebook, 221B Tactical Sheepdogs, and we also have a private training platform exclusively for our members, where we have training content like this, but we take a deeper dive, and we also have gear reviews. We're going to have podcasts, interviews with some of the top tier operators from around the world. And that's all training for you. That's all we're doing that for. We're bringing you content that we know that we could put out on some of our social media channels and platforms. However, with things being taken down right and left, and things being banned and mysteriously disappearing, we wanted something that we owned, that was private, exclusive, and you could access 24/7 exclusively, and have that content, that training there at the tip of your fingers, right from the comfort of your phone, anytime you want it, anytime you need it. So that is what you get in the Sheepdog Nexus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link below this video to the Nexus, so you can sign up. Right now we have almost 30,000 members, and now these members are from across the country and around the world. So one of the beautiful functions of the Nexus that is coming soon is your ability to connect with any of the other sheepdogs within the Nexus. So if you're going to another state, or even if you're traveling outside the country, going to another country, you have the ability to connect with sheepdogs there and talk about training, maybe get some insight on the lay of the land of where you're going. Maybe you're going there with your family. So it's a great tool for you to use, and once again, at your fingertips, no matter where you are. Just something for us to give back to our followers and to those who want to be better assets whether you are a police officer on the job and you just want to be a better officer, better trained, and a better asset to your coworkers, or if you're just a father, a mother, someone who is a responsible gun owner that carries a weapon or may use a weapon in their home, and you want to know what to do in the event you need to pull that thing out, and you want to be the best you can be, the Nexus is a great training platform for you. I'm bringing my experience, 13 years full-time police officer. I've trained with some of the best, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Army Rangers, but not only are you going to get that, but I'm going to now bring the content direct from some of these people and put it directly in the Nexus for you to access. So, awesome thing to check out. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber to our channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if this is the kind of stuff you like. If not, that's okay too. I hope you enjoyed this video anyhow. If there's someone you know that could maybe benefit from the information in this video, go ahead and share this video with them and have them check out the channel as well. Go ahead and check out some of our other training videos, some of our other gear reviews, and see what you like, see what you enjoy. And most importantly, we want you to get the training so you can be safe. When you're safer, you get to go home at the end of the day, whether you're on the job as a first responder or you're a family person looking to protect those you love. You going home with your loved ones and you going home to your loved ones is the most important thing. Remember, always watch their hands, watch your six, and get home safe. We will see you next time.